In a connected world of seemingly endless turmoil, it's easy to lose sight of the consistent technological progress which ultimately makes our lives better. Here at the Acronym Foundation, we believe there are many reasons to be optimistic about the future, especially when it comes to the economic landscape. It's remarkable to think about how far we've come in just 25 years. Back then, we were just starting to use email. There were no smartphones, no social networks, and certainly no streaming services. The internet itself was greeted with skepticism. Many argued it had no real-world application, that it was too slow, or that it would only lead to a tangle of legal issues. Some critics even believed that the World Wide Web would never amount to anything more than a niche way to trade illegal goods or evade taxes. The idea that a good majority of commerce would take place online seemed like a far-off fantasy. Yet today, that fantasy is our reality. We've made the transition from speculation to reliance, so much so that we often take it for granted. At its core, the internet is a global distributed network for simply transferring data. Fundamental technologies like TCP/IP, packet switching, and data compression helped make the products and services we use today possible. The internet's reach now extends into every part of our lives, whether digital or physical. But despite its vast potential, the internet was really just designed as a transfer protocol. The internet is a stateless network. It doesn't store any data over time. For instance, when you visit a website, can that site recognize who you are? It can't. The internet itself doesn't have data stored of any kind. It just relays information between users. To compensate for this, developers created cookies, small data files that are stored in your browser based on your internet activity. Cookies essentially serve as a workaround to provide the internet with state. By interpreting cookies, websites can remember your activity and make your experience more seamless. But this comes with trade-offs. Cookies also enable those targeted ads that can sometimes feel a little too personal. While cookies make some interactions smoother, they don't really solve the internet's fundamental limitations. These limitations become even more apparent when dealing with money. For example, when buying something online, you need a third-party service to process a credit or debit card and submit a payment authorization. Money doesn't actually move at all during this transaction. A bank just confirms it to the merchant that a payment will be sent later. Ultimately, the merchant needs to trust that the user was legitimate, the authorization was valid, and that the bank will eventually send the funds. But because the web is stateless, there is no concept of users, accounts, or money within the internet. Instead, we rely on myriad trusted third parties, bringing more complexity and cost to what should be a straightforward two-way exchange. These shortcomings were evident even in the early days of the internet. Mark Andreessen, who helped create the Netscape web browser, referred to the internet's lack of native payments as its cardinal sin. At first glance, inefficient online payments might not seem like a big deal, but the inefficiencies that exist come with hidden costs. These costs are something we all end up paying for, even if we don't notice it. As more transactions shift online, even small inefficiencies can add up to massive costs. For many businesses, payment processing fees alone can account for up to 80% of their operational expenses. Research from the Kansas City Fed showed that the total social cost of payments in the United States is about 2% of GDP. To put that into perspective, that's nearly as much as the 2023 US defense budget. Clearly, there has to be a better way to move money. Decentralized networks and blockchains are an ideal solution to transferring value. Blockchains are actually a simple technology. A blockchain is just a database, but anyone can download and copy and participate in adding entries to the database. The entire system is open, transparent, and fully inspectable. This verifiability of the system establishes trust that the system undeniably does what it says it does, and the consensus of information in the database establishes an unquestionable truth. A truth that is the basis of state within the network. Decentralized finance uses state-based distributed networks like Ethereum to create transparent, efficient systems for performing payments or other transactions. When you transfer value on a DeFi network, the entire system confirms the transaction. There's no need for cookies or trusted third parties. It goes beyond just payments. DeFi enables borrowing, lending, and even complex financial services, all while removing centralized control and reducing costs. The ramifications of adopting DeFi will be huge. The shift of global finance to DeFi applications is already underway. This shift is reminiscent of what happened in the early days of the internet. At first, most companies built their own internal networks, or intranets, requiring hardware, software, and IT staff to maintain them. But then, businesses began to migrate their services to public infrastructure. Today, most companies rely on cloud-based services for their email, rather than assuming the burden of maintaining their own servers. We've seen this pattern before, dating all the way back to the telegraph. Moving from proprietary systems to public networks has consistently made products and services more efficient and accessible. The same is true for finance. As public distributed systems like Ethereum continue to grow, it seems inevitable that more and more financial transactions will shift towards utilizing public infrastructure. The internet didn't become the global force it is today overnight. It matured over time. Data throughput increased, user interfaces improved, and legal frameworks evolved. These developments expanded the internet's reach to billions of people and paved the way for massive online marketplaces like Amazon and eBay. We're witnessing the same trends in DeFi. With innovations like Layer 2 networks, improved user experiences, and evolving legal clarity, decentralized finance is now reaching hundreds of millions of users, and this is just the beginning. We're standing at the brink of a financial revolution, just as the internet revolutionized the world's economy and created tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Netflix. Decentralized finance is set to do the same in the financial world. We're only scratching the surface of what's possible, but DeFi is already reshaping the way we think about trust and money. In our next video, we'll learn about some of the misconceptions of the history of money and how the modern financial system works.